Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got some manly stuff to talk about with you today. Ladies who watch this channel, I hope you'll enjoy it as well, because this also plays into how we rear our boys and guide those boys into being young men. For this, I've got the unmarked Danish estate pipe, because we're going to be starting off talking about Beowulf again. And so it seemed like the unmarked Danish was the way to go. And in the bowl, we have the good old Svendborg Danish mixture there. So as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. Talked about Beowulf multiple times on this channel, which would certainly make my English teaching friend Matt very happy. He's a big Beowulf fan. And specifically, not too long ago, I was talking about this edition, the Tolkien translation of Beowulf. And as I was finishing it recently, there are two passages that really caught my attention and quite frankly took me back to the days when my son was a little boy. And both of these are toward the end of the poem, when Beowulf has been the king of the Geats for 50 years. This is long after the slaying of Grendel and Grendel's mother. And this dragon has appeared with this gold hoard. And Beowulf is going to have to deal with this dragon now. And he says, to the knights who go out with him, he's going to go out to deal with the dragon. He says, "Wait now on the hill, clad in your corselets, ye knights in harness, to see which of us two may better endure his wounds when the combat is over," meaning him or the dragon. "This is not an errand for you, nor is it within the measure of any man, save me alone, that he should put forth his might against the fierce destroyer, doing deeds of knighthood. I shall with my valor win the gold, or else shall war, cruel and deadly evil, take your prince." Then the bold warrior stood up beside his shield, resolute beneath his helm. Wearing his grim mail, he strode up to the stony cliffs, trusting in the strength of one man alone. Such is no craven's feat. Then he who, endowed with manly virtue, had passed through many a host of battles and a clash of war, when the ranks of men smote together, saw now at the mound's side a stone arch standing, from whence a stream came hurrying from the hill. And I was really struck by the fact that you got Beowulf, the king, who says, "Guys, this one's for me. This task is for me alone. This is for nobody else. This dragon is in my land. I'm the one responsible for it." And the Beowulf bard says, refers to him as being endowed with manly virtue. And as I read that, I was thinking about the stories that we read to, the movies, television shows, cartoons, and so forth, specifically that we set before our boys. And there was a time when we set stories like this out before our boys. We set stories of valor and heroism and what it means to fight for what is right, defend those who need defending, and then just a few pages over, after Beowulf has died, because even when it was getting rough, his knights did not rush in to save him as they should have. At that point, it was getting bad. His knights should have rushed in. Only one young knight named Beowulf did. Too late wasn't enough to save him. And Beowulf really dresses down the other knights. And he says, death is more sweet for every man of worth than life of scorn, or life with scorn. So it goes in that same idea. And I was thinking about that, and thinking back about the books that I'd read my son Austin when he was a boy, the stories that he liked. And I'm going to walk you through just a few things here. When he was very little, I had written a book for him, The Ballad of Sir Alfred. And let's see here, this is what? Austin on his 6th birthday. So he was 6 years old when I wrote this for him. And it's still a big book, right? Big print. And you see the graphics there. And I just give you a little taste of it. In days of old, when knights were bold and men wore suits of steel, one knight alone obeyed God's word, to evil would not yield. Sir Alfred had become a knight in good King William's realm, and there he earned his shield and sword, his armor and his helm. By working hard and training long and seeking out God's will, and so it was a page turned knight, and squire turned knight with skill. And the story goes on, where, of course, there is an evil guy, a bad guy named Margon, who unleashes an evil dragon against the kingdom of good King William. And, of course, it's Sir Alfred who comes to the rescue. So, again, tales of valor, tales of daring do, as we say. That was when he was 6. Then, when he was... what's this? Next year, 7th year, 7th birthday. The tale of Phidippides Allen Long. This was a story about a boy who, with his family, went to Greece, and lots of heroic adventure. He discovers there's something to do with tachyon particles that are supposed to move at the speed of light, that enables super speed. And turns out this little boy rushes back in time to keep a bad guy from defeating the famous Phidippides, who was the runner who ran back from the field, the Battle of Marathon, to the people of Athens, announced Nike, victory, and died. Famous episode there. There was a guy who was going to go back in time to make sure that didn't happen, and little Phidippides Allen Long, he gets super speed and goes back in time, and again defeats the bad guys. Then I'm going to mention one more of other ones that I wrote. This was for Austin's 11th birthday, The Legend of Aeneas. And this is a retelling of Virgil's Aeneid from the perspective of the hero Aeneas's son, Iulus. But there's something that Virgil wrote in the actual Aeneid, in book 11. And this is a literal translation of what Virgil wrote. The hero Aeneas was speaking to his son Iulus. Learn from me, son, of true work and the way to grow into a real man. Learn from another of various fates. But for now, my right hand will give you protection from war and will lead you toward greater glory. Soon, when your age has matured and your soul seeks for models to follow, call to your mind the examples of those who have gone on before you. There is something, folks, in the heart and soul of a boy that needs stories like that. You know, it looks like we got a little sun coming in here, so apologize for the brightness. The soul of a boy needs that. The soul of a boy needs to be encouraged and to have valorous models set before his eyes and indeed set before his heart. And so often these come in the great tales of yore, tales like, Austin had a wonderful a children's version of Ivanhoe, which I remember reading to him. Couldn't find it just now. I love this series right here. There is a series of books called Classic Starts, a wonderful, wonderful series that casts all the classic literature into a form capable of being appreciated by younger people. Puffin Classics, which is an imprint of Penguin Books, has this one, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And Austin just loved this stuff. Very big into King Arthur for a while. Now, I read these when I was a boy, and he has so many the Hardy Boys books. And the Hardy Boys, if you know these go back, golly, 1927 was this first one was 1927. The Hardy Boys, The Tower Treasure. And what do you have? You have young men who are all on adventure. They're often helping their dad and discovering who done it. Right? These are mystery novels. They get into great adventure and nothing improper. Right? There's no undue sex or violence. There's nothing. And so many of the children's movies today, I notice they'll have a rating that'll say rude humor, as if all kids need to have jokes about bodily substances and bodily functions. No, they don't. They don't have to have that. There's plenty of great stories that have gone without that, and the Hardy Boys have been popular for now coming up on 100 years, and Austin absolutely loved those. One more, and then I gotta get back to smoking this pipe here. When he was getting ready to turn 13, I wrote him a little book on the true man, and we worked through it together. And talks about characteristics of what it means to be a real man. And something I included in there, I said in the very first Lone Ranger novel written by Franz Stryker in 1936, two bad guys have just been caught and are facing execution by hanging. One of them tries to weasel his way out of the punishment, but the other turns to him and says, "Are you plumb crazy, Maxim, or just plain scared? We ain't in no position to make a trade, so keep shut and take your medicine instead of playing the crybaby." One of the Lone Ranger's friends chuckles and says, "You got a man's guts, Murdoch, even if you have a reptile's soul." Even the bad guy in 1936 managed to show some level of character when facing the punishment for his crimes. So let me get this guy lit again. Let's get this guy going again and say a little bit more here. There we go. Okay. So I would encourage anybody that is around boys. And honestly, I think you could make an argument for certainly 15 and under. Don't just play to the lowest common denominator. Introduce them to the good stories, the rich stories, stories that portray manhood in a valorous way. Of course, I would argue there's no other way to portray true manhood. True manhood is valorous. And our children need these examples. They need good stories. They need the good models of kings and knights, cowboys and superheroes and so forth. So I'm curious, share with us, what are some of the stories, if you were a man, that you really enjoyed as a boy growing up? Stories that really did set before you those great visions and ideals of manhood. Men or women, what are some stories that you have read to your children, grandchildren, grandsons, nephews, cousins, younger brothers that fit that bill? We'd love to hear from you. As Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.